I was driving a couple of days ago, and I was driving, it was 20 miles an hour, right? And a child ran out in front of me. So what I did is I sped up to 30. No, because statistically, right, you hit a child at 30 miles an hour, 70% chance they'll survive. I've seen the advert. I've been watching the news lately. Usually, if some people die in the course of their duties, their professional work. And usually when that happens, it's tragic, isn't it? It's a tragedy. But just once in a while, someone dies during the course of their duties, and it's actually quite funny. Right? Soldiers die, right? That's tragic. They die in war, it's tragic. Firemen, they get killed in fires, that's tragic. Last week, in Wigan, a window cleaner drowned in his bucket. That's funny. What's your name? Are you an Eminem fan? No, I'm not really either. Very homophobic though, known for being homophobic. And in order to try and combat that, what he did was he sent out a political message, didn't he? He sang a song with Elton John. And that kind of helped with his homophobic image. But I thought a better way of dealing with the situation, a better political message, would have been instead of singing a song with Elton John, if he'd slept with Elton John. I did teach for 12 years, and 3 weeks ago I bumped into an ex-student of mine. She'd been in my form group. I taught her from the age of 11 up to 16. I'd never liked her. Her name was Sarah. She was thick as shit, and we never got on, frankly, throughout the whole time at school. She left school, 12 years ago. She must have been 28, and I bumped into her in my local Waitrose. She was working there, and as soon as she saw me, she came up to me, and she said what I think is the most unintentionally ironic thing anyone has ever said to me. There was no intended irony whatsoever. She saw me, recognised me, I recognised her, she stormed up to me and she goes, "Mr. Sanders, I was in your form for 7 years. You never thought I'd make it, did you? You never thought I'd be a manager in Waitrose, did you?" I had more down for Asda, I'll be honest with you. I used to get in trouble as a teacher. I got in trouble with the headmaster all the time. Once, I got in trouble for having favourites. Now, do you have favourites as a violin teacher? You do. It's natural, isn't it, to have favourites? You're not supposed to as a teacher. I got in trouble for it. I told the headmaster that I preferred the previous headmaster. I saw a sign the other day and it scared the hell out of me. This was the sign, right? Beware, pickpockets are operating in this area. Scared the shit out of me, because at the time I was in Ealing Hospital. The first personal thing I'll tell you about myself is my favourite book is actually The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. See, it's no joke, I'm telling you personal stuff about myself, there's nothing funny about that whatsoever. The other thing I'll tell you about myself is that a few weeks ago I went for an HIV test. Anyone ever been for the HIV test? Yeah, it's scary, isn't it? Yeah. Bloody scary, where did you go? In Ealing Hospital. You see, I did. Good for you, man. Good for you. Is that the first one you've had? It is humbling, isn't it? I walk into this clinic, I didn't go near where I lived. I went 30 miles from where I lived. I was shit scared I was going to bump into somebody I recognised. It's terrifying. And you go in and there's 10 other people waiting. And as I walked in, I was just quite upbeat, because I'm kind of usually upbeat when I'm in public. And I was like, "Hello, how are you? Nice to meet you. Do I take a seat here?" And everyone else is looking really glum. And you get called for a meeting, first of all, with the health nurse, don't you? And the health nurse really gives you a dose of reality. And then I was told before I had the injection, the blood test, to go and sit and join the others, and realised, and as soon as I'd had that meeting with the nurse, I would look like everybody else. I was like faced with my mortality, and it was terrifying. Did you get an option of how to find out your results?
Yeah.
Did you opt for text? You could get HIV results through text. They offer you telephone, they'll call you, they'll write to you, or they'll text you. You don't have that option?
I didn't get a text one.
Well, I was offered, do you mind us contacting you by text? I thought, no, not at all. Ticked the text box, and then spent the next 7 days after shitting myself every time my phone beeps. 7 days after the thing, I was told I'd have a result in 7 days. I got a text, right, and it was 3 words, and this is what the text said, and this is, I'm not joking, I got a text saying, "You have AIDS," right? That's not actually a punchline, ladies and gentlemen. I expected a little bit of tension when I announced that, but that is what the text said, "You have AIDS," right? Now, at the time, it was a Saturday, and I was on the way to a gig, and I was running a little bit late, and I've got to go on stage, and I've got to be funny, and I've had a text telling me, "You have AIDS," those 3 words, right? I arrive at the gig, and the promoter is waiting by the door, and I'm flustered, as you can imagine, and I'm trying to get my zone, and I just want to be on my own, so I want to, reflect, I want to be able to call them, I want to talk to someone, and the last thing I want to do is be in this pub in Chester where it happened to be doing a show, right? And the promoter met me at the door, and now I'd been running late for the show, I should explain, and I had previously called him up to say, sorry, I'm running a bit late. And I mentioned that to the promoter. I said, I'm sorry about I'm running late. Did you get my message? And he said, yeah, I did get your message. I replied. I texted you. I said, I'd only had one text, right? And that text was, you have AIDS. And I didn't want to tell him this, but considering it was the only text I'd had that night, and he was telling me, he texted me, I showed him, and I said, look, this, it was a number that I didn't recognise. And he said, well, that's my number. Now, if you type 2437 and you've got predictive text on, there are two words that can come up. One is AIDS, the other is ages. I had called this promoter to say I'm running late. He had meant to text me, you have ages. And just so happened on the one day that I happened to be waiting for fucking results from an HIV test, I get a text from him saying you have AIDS. So the moral of the story is practice safe sex. I actually got a weird text today, actually. I got a text from a close friend of mine telling me I'm a cunt. Now, that wasn't a random text. I'm going to tell you, it wasn't just out of the blue, him telling me I was a cunt. What it was I had texted him previously, and I'm reading the text I'd written to him. It was the combination of several. I said, I don't know if that's justified. Just a friend to call another friend a cunt, I don't think that's justified. I had texted him to say, I had a terrible day. I'm paraphrasing it. I had a really bad day. I've been booking flights and hotels. It's taken 4 hours, and I'm knackered. Right? He texted me back to say, you think you've got problems? I'm about to lose my house and I've got the debt collectors after me, right? So I texted him back to say, that's nothing. I've only managed to get the business class upgrade coming back from Nashville. I've got to fly economy all the way there. And then he texted me back to say I'm a cunt. So, I do fly a lot. I actually attacked a stranger on a plane once. Quite recently. Has anyone ever done that? This is true. This is another one. This is true, by the way. This isn't one of those pickpocket things. I was on an aeroplane and I attacked a complete stranger. I'll tell you about it, decide if this was justified. I was flying from Los Angeles to London. And I'm sitting on, I'm on the aisle, there's a window, there's a seat there, window there, somebody there, they're not there yet, there's no one there, and I'm on the aisle, and people are coming into the plane, and there's a few of us dotted around, and I'm reading a book, right? I've got a very big book, and I'm reading it, I'm into it, and suddenly I became aware of a smell, a really horrible stench. It was fucking disgusting, and everybody else around me was aware of it too. We looked up, and we all realised it is that guy coming down the aisle with his fat wife. We knew it was those two, we knew it was him, we could see, you could just tell, and everyone is thinking, please God, not next to me, not next to me. Yes, he was next to me, right? He sits there, his wife sits by the window, the second they sit down, the guy unbuttons his shirt, and she uses the laminated safety card to fan with her chest. Right? He's sitting there like this, right? My head is there, and I'm not happy, right? The plane goes up, I'm reading my book, and fortunately, once we reached cruising altitude, the guy, he's looking around he found a double seat further back, and he went to the double seat and he curled up further back, so I didn't see him again. But the second he did that, his wife, who's now got the two seats here to herself, right? She took her shoes off, lay down with her head towards the window, and basically stuck her bare, sort of stockinged feet into my thigh. The first time it happened, I sort of did that, I brushed it off, right? And she moved her feet away, and then her feet came back again, and I just feel the blood rising. This is where the blood pressure thing kicks in. And again, I brushed it off, and about the third or fourth time, her feet just stuck me there. I didn't mean to do it, I didn't plan to do it, I didn't know I was going to do it, I just did it. I had this huge big book that I mentioned, and I just went, whack! And ladies and gentlemen, that is why The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck is my favourite book.